Hi, everyone. Welcome to the March episode of the Talking Headless show. My name is Shashi Bellamkonda. My day job is I'm an analyst for the Infotech Group. It's a global company based out of North America. And I cover mostly software companies across the board, translating geek to English that most leaders can understand. The Talking Headless show is mainly to expose and increase the visibility of the analyst relations in the technology analyst space. We are part of the Players Production Network. Many of you may have heard of Paul Greenberg and Brent Learley, who are part of the Players Production Network. There are several other shows that you should check out. So, how's everybody doing today? I hope you will put some comments onto the show here, join the show, ask questions. And we have really very exciting guests. And I'll introduce the first one shortly. She's Sneha Kapoor, managing partner for MEA and APAC at Kia Analyst Relations. Over 20 years of experience, served as an industry analyst, consultant, strategic growth advisor. She focuses a lot on enterprise customers with technology adoption and advising technology companies. I know she's held a lot of leadership positions at IDC, S&P, NASCOM, and frequent contributor to a lot of shows, including publications such as Tech in Asia, CIO.com, and CNN. With that, let me bring up Sneha Kapoor. Ladies and gentlemen, my first guest, Sneha Kapoor. How are you doing, Sneha?
Very well, Shashi. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, very nice. And how did you like the intro music?
Yeah, very fantastic. Brought back the memories of Bhangra from Delhi. So it was very
That's,
exciting.
that's true. No, I worked with our creative Chanel, and she did a good job. Plus, I used Google's Music ML to actually combine some of those. So that was really good. I probably didn't do a very good job introducing you, so why don't you introduce yourself to our fantastic audience?
You're very humble and kind. Let me put it that way.
Oh,
But
thank you.
I'm gonna repeat the same thing, but let me do that. Hello, folks. Good to meet you all. I have been, if I have to put my intro, strategy, research, and consulting has been in my blood. Right from the start. I've done many roles with different organizations over the last 20 years. Um, you know call it NASCOM, IDC as an analyst, and even S&P, especially Capital IQ. So that's the quick intro. But my journey has been from strategy to being, or I would say, a growth strategist to being an analyst myself, covering automation, AI, cloud. I was based out of Singapore, working at IDC Singapore, and looking after Asia Pacific for about close to 3 years now. I've moved into an analyst relations professional role, and I'm a managing partner with Kia. Kia is an AR agency, which has primarily been in the US and Europe, but for the last 3 years, when I came on board, I started to focus and invest quite a bit in India, Southeast Asia, and Middle East and Africa. And there is where I typically, travel to expand the business, but also manage the delivery of the accounts. So that's my quick introduction.
No, very nice. So I have to ask, did you get bored of being an analyst and said, like, hey, it's always better to, which job is a little bit more pressure, according to you?
I think I would say both. I think, and I can't see, but I'm pretty sure AR folks are nodding their heads as well, because there are different challenges, both pros and cons for being an AR professional, but also an analyst, right? I think it was a very I didn't plan this, but it happened so much like that because I started to realize when I was in an analyst role for about 6 years, especially operating out of APAC, and I started to have conversations with the professionals across the globe and even analysts, my colleagues or even my peers from different analyst firms, that the way it is AR was run in the US and Europe is very different from the way it is run in India and APAC at that time, right? And I realized one thing, that a lot of Indian companies or Southeast Asian companies and even Middle East and Africa for that matter, specifically Middle East, right? They have plans to go global. They want to expand into newer markets, but they didn't explore AR as a channel for as a force multiplier, to drive their strategy, product, marketing, events, and even GTM, right? And that's where I realized that there is a value, there is an opportunity for us. So when I moved to Dubai, a while back, and I started to explore more opportunities, I think this is where I started to discuss with Kia, and I think all of us agreed. And lo and behold, here I am, 2.5 years later. Exceptional growth for Kia company, specifically in this region as well. And this is where we see that there are a lot of good discussions, but also a lot of perceptions that we are trying to break about AR. So that's been a very interesting journey. So no, I didn't get bored of being an analyst. It's just that at that opportune time, this sounded like a great opportunity and something which was very greenfield for the market, the region, I would say, that we are in.
Very nice. I think it's quite interesting. Like, uh, if people are used to the North American market, it's a very totally different one. Tell me if you agree with this. Like, I think analysts' relations and technology analysts have become even more important now because of how people are searching for information. It's no longer like, hey, you need to be on page one of Google or anything like that. It's more people want opinions, people want original commentary and things like that. Are you seeing the same thing in different parts of the world as well? Of course. Do you agree with what I said about North America?
I kind of do, and I think if your question is, about if folks are leveraging AI as well, and really talking to analysts, is that the question?
Actually, I was commenting on what you said. So yeah, let me explain what I was saying is today people are searching on AI powered search, right?
Yeah.
So for companies, in my opinion, number one is your customer referrals are number one. Number two is peer-to-peer referrals, like a CIO talking to another CIO and asking like, hey, what's working? What are some new trends? Or even probably somebody listening to this show too. But number three used to be reviews. I think analyst generated content has become number three. That's because they are kind of very in depth, neutral, and have a point of view. So, no matter where you're searching, I think that comes up. So, I wanted your opinion on the importance of both analyst relations and analysts is even more today than before.
See, I think if you're really talking about independent, unbiased reviews, right, and something which is in depth, it always comes from the analyst, right? I'll give you an example. Because I was catering to a lot of banks, Asia Pacific banks, and insurance companies in my past life, right? And a lot of them would have teams to even research different tools and technologies to, for example, solve a particular problem. But I think they always kept analyst firms also on retainer. They would talk to those analysts where they have built a relation, who they trust, right, for the right advice as well. So again, if millions of dollars are on the line when it comes to, and banks and insurance, the kind of they typically would, even if there is AI powered search, even if there is word of mouth from a other CIO, even if there is something they've read on in newspaper, on a digital article, right? They will always go back, or they would mostly go back to that analyst or analyst firm and seek an opinion, seek the tools that they should talk to, what is the current problem they have. Even a lot of them, even for example, VCs talk to a lot of these analyst firms to see which companies they should be investing in, right? So there's a lot of ways. I would say there is still a very there are different views as to what is the rank in terms of, or how important our analyst reviews. But the world I see right now, they're still very relevant, and they are driving a lot of dollar value impact even on the deals. Even through the report mentions that different vendors, different customers would be marketing, so very relevant. But how much is the impact? I think we still have to hold on to hold and see how AI is evolving and the kind of impact they will have. AI has impact on everything right now, but how much, the degree of the impact, I think we'll still have to wait and see.
Nice. I've had this show has been, I would call it a global show because I've had guests from Europe. I've had like Anushka actually was in the UK and then she moved to the US. Virve, who was in the last show, uh, has been here from Finland for many years. I think you brought up a very important point. In many parts of the world, it's not just a transactional relationship. I think, like you said, there's a lot of trust in the opinion, and sometimes it's almost like analysts become consultants to where you want to go, how do you want to go to new markets. Is that similar to what you're seeing as well, Suzanne?
Yes, yes, true that, and it's very relevant. I would say depends on the size of the organization as well. Of course, you need to have budgets to be able to have advisory subscriptions as well. But of course, it's still very relevant. I would say everybody is sitting on the fence and seeing the impact of AI. And there are a lot of challenges also around AI, right? Especially how the hallucination part and the guardrails part, right? So again, I think everybody is sitting on the fence, waiting how it will impact. But yes, it is across the globe, and the way we run AR programs is a global AR program. So we talk to the analyst in the US, different view of the market. We also would be speaking to the folks in the Europe, again Singapore, India, for that matter, and everybody is saying the same thing or a similar thing. But again, everybody is also following that wait and see approach.
Yeah, that's good. I wanted to ask you this question about this is more for an advice for both CEOs of emerging companies. Plus, I also find that there are large companies that don't have an analyst relations function, which surprises me a lot. By this time, I mean, I think just before the show, you and I were discussing that the whole community of analyst relations is not very large. It's probably not in the thousands. But I had written a post, and I think we discussed this before, that when companies go to an IPO, it's even more important for them to build their analyst relations program probably 1 or 2 years before they think about IPO. I think we're hearing SpaceX is going to do an IPO very soon, but I don't know if they have an analyst relations person or not. I've not seen any. So, what's your thinking? Like, what's your advice to companies in terms of when they should start an analyst relations function?
Yeah, very, very interesting question. And Shashi, I kind of agree with you as well, right? So typically, when a company is planning an IPO, we typically say you should do it at least 2 to 3 years in advance. And we have taken one of our customers right from being a startup to a scale up to even a public company, right? So we have been part of those journeys as well, and we always suggest that 2 to 3 years is where that when you're planning, because AR can be a force multiplier even in terms of bringing an adequate or an unprecedented value as well when it comes to the valuation and the perception of the market, right? Even for companies who are planning to raise funds, we typically say at least do it 1 year in advance, because that is where the people, the VCs or the customers, or even when you're trying to hire interesting people, when you have raised funds, they need to be they need to know more about you as well. And which sources would they go to? They would go to maybe analyst firms reports as another validation as well. VC again, when VCs will be investing, and if they are talking to the analyst and the analyst firms, they would also be checking on your company. And the same thing about even partners. If you are a product company and looking for partners, again, those partners get maybe 10, 20, 30 mails from different vendors in a month, right? Maybe more service provider or a reseller. How would you differentiate, right? So if you want that story, use your story, your information as a currency to really drive the impact, you should start investing in doing analyst relations. So I think that is something we usually suggest to most of our prospects who and the ones who have also become our customers.
Very nice. I think a very detailed answer. Thank you very much. So, as a follow up to that, when I'm talking I mean, and this is an open invitation for anybody who's listening, I love talking to other peers, both analysts and analyst relations. So, if anybody wants to reach out, it could just be, I think, Emma Flanagan on one of the episodes that said like agenda-less conversations are very, very true. I mean, I find that a good way to build relationships doesn't have to be commercial at all. I think that's how we met. We were part of the women in product marketing thing. So I think the question that I wanted to ask is, what are some strategies that you would recommend to build credibility with the leadership level and actually measure that ROI? And where my previous conversation came up and I lost my chain of thought there is, people just keep saying like there are different ways that analyst relations is measured in many companies, right? So throw some light on what your point of view is on, how do you build executive buy-in and how do you measure ROI?
Yeah, so very interesting and a difficult one as well. So I think, let me put it this way, right? What I have understood when I started to do hunting, right, for analyst relations in a market which is still new to AR. Let's start with India, right, or even Southeast Asia, or even Middle East, right? All three of them. I think I made my life difficult to accept that challenge that I will expand into these markets. But the the kind of conversations that I have seen over a period of time have been very interesting. And I would highlight this part, right? I have learned very important lesson that talk to only those people who have seen the impact of AR or the analyst landscape in your past life, right? That is where I mean, it's a very niche topic, very the road less traveled kind of a discussion topic, but where we have seen where we have spoken to the prospects and the customers who have seen the impact of analyst relations, good analyst relations, comprehensive and strategic analyst relations, as well as those who've seen the impact of analyst in their previous organizations, are the best ones to start the conversation, right? So that is, I think, the most or the simplest of strategy that I have learned over a period of time, but really works. So that is one thing. But of course, one of the quite a few things, but one of the biggest question is around the ROI impact as well, right? And this keeps many AR professionals up at night, trying to justify even to the sponsors within their organization, be it a very large SI or even a smaller product company or a platform company, right? All have the same questions. And there are quite a few ways to really see the value that will come and has come from AR, specifically through report mentions. If you're driving the marketing campaigns around it, or using the content heavily in your discussions with the analyst, we also help our customers do sales enablement, right? Which has seen
Oh,
quite a
really?
impact delivered to those customers, because see, a lot of them, our sweet spot, or where we start to have more interesting conversations, is when the companies are starting up or they are scaling up, right? So there is a way to do that sales enablement, how you really leverage those report mentions. The story doesn't end in getting a report mention and my job is done. We work very closely with our customers on how to amplify their visibility, their credibility through those report mentions, as well as recommendations. So we have been in the fortunately, we've been in that space where we have also spoken to the analysts who can really impact your top line for the customers, or for the vendors, right? Even helping their sales guy get a foot in the door when it's coming to either the RFI being designed, or even recommending analysts, recommending us as three top tools or three top solutions or services providers that you should partners, you should look at. So again, this has been done quite heavily in the US and Europe, and that is why we've had customers who have been just bootstrapped right out of universities, who have hired us to also multi billion dollar companies as well, right? So I won't divulge a lot of information there,
Oh, that's really
because
cool. And I think,
you as an analyst, I just want to make that remark as well, that you are one of those analysts who can impact the top line straight away, because you are privy to the discussions around customers and their challenges, right? So but the problem is that the people typically focus on just the report mentions. We always say 50% recommendations, 50% report mentions. That's how we gonna take you forward on that AR strategy, and trust us, for that. And I'm like, if you speak to our customers, you see our GT reviews, it talks about that story as well.
yeah, I mean, that's a very nice and very detailed explanation. One thing that previous guests of this show also mentioned, it is very difficult for sales teams to tell you if they've talked to an analyst before or not. And sometimes sales teams say like, "Hey, we never get somebody coming and saying that they saw a report or talked to an analyst." I think it's more of I mean, I know a lot of salespeople will also be watching the show, but I mean, some of the savvy ones actually use AI to look at all the sales calls to find out if there's any mention. Anything come to mind for you to say, like either training the sales teams to ask the question, like, "Hey, who did you consult before?" or anything like that?
So very interesting, and it's a top-down cultural thing here, because if it's if the sales guys are encouraged to capture that information even in their CRM, really helps to see, as a CEO or the CEO or a chief growth officer, strategy officer, to see if the AR is making an impact as well. And there are ways to encourage that. I'll give you an example. When we do that sales enablement, this thing, right, and we do it after every couple of months, depending on the maturity of that client as well, when they are on that AR strategy and the journey, right? So we also give examples of how to reach out to different prospects, what kind of mails you can draft, so sample emails. To that extent, we go in that much detail as well, so that they know how to write those mails, typically being on the right side of the compliance as well when it comes to analyst firms, and really see the value that it can bring them as well. Some of them have highlighted to us that they have a prospect which was not responding for a while, has accepted even to meet. Some of those discussions have gone to a deeper level. The ghosting part has kind of changed as well. So yes, that is one one thing. And the second thing is, I think it's just about encouraging the sales guys to put it in CRM, right? And some of the mature AI programs do that as well, and they can see if they have a budget of, couple of $1,000 to even, maybe 2 3 5 million dollars as well, right? They have seen a multi-million-dollar impact as well, and they can see at what level AR has been impacting. Is it the top line, or is it through, running those marketing campaigns, or providing enough content in in the events as well. So again, I think everybody goes through that journey. You have to believe that it is making sense for you. You have to see the value come from AR. I think that is when people will start to believe that AR works. AR can be a force multiplier and deliver value to you both in dollars, and as I said, be it strategy, product, GTM, events, marketing, right? So that's the thing.
This is like a AR 101 so far, and I'm sure when Shawn Rogers comes on, that'll be a different. But I wanted to ask a question about moving it slightly differently to analysts. Like, how do you engage analysts? How do you get them interested? And what kind of relationship should analyst relations people think about when they are approaching analysts?
I think the way we do it, and what has worked for me as well when I was an analyst, right? I used to get a lot of messaging on LinkedIn, or those cold emails as well, right? I think the right elevator pitch about a company is very important, and it only happens when you know the platform, the product, or the service really well, right? And how we do that is because we do very deep dive kickoff workshops before we start to draft those elevator pitches as well. Again, that elevator pitch about that company has to match with the research and the interest of the analyst. So if I know Shashi likes this kind of pitches, so this is the coverage area, I will leverage that. I will read your research, and then draft it, right? It is not a templatized version which is created, and then I am doing mass emailing, right? So I think it is really important in that. And a lot of people, a lot of analysts would accept if it kind of aligns with their research strategy, something they are interesting in. A lot of them, even if you go with the contrarian view, right? Again, that would be very interesting for some of the analysts, because they also are trying to solve two problems, right? One is uh, the different kind of solutions, or the different kind of research they want to write for their customers, enterprise customers. At the same time, how this particular market that they're focusing on, for example, CX, AI, agentic, how is that evolving? So the thought leadership piece is also very important. And a lot of times it is not about, it just does not only come from the enterprise customers, right? It also comes from the peers the analysts are talking to, but also the vendors and service providers.
Very nice, Neha. This was a brilliant conversation. I think we could go on and maybe create an entire course on this. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. Sneha will be in the green room, willing to answer your questions on your comments, and we'll bring her back. Right now, we're going to start with an episode that I'm calling as Marketing While Brown. See you in a bit, Sneha.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. This is a short segment that is right before our next guest, who will be Shawn Rogers. The main thing is I'm not thinking about showing you something that everybody has heard, but I was at the IRL 26, which is an event from the Players Production Network. So the company that I came across and I met Ruthie Greenberg from this is Kaltura. Usually, I've been showcasing very small companies or startups, but this is not a startup. It's been in business for many years. It's a video collaboration platform or a video event platform. I mean, One thing that I really liked is they were had three simultaneous streams running. The quality is really very good. If you go to irl26.com, you can actually see their stream. I did a similar Talking Headless show live from the event in Atlanta. They have, you can actually have a conversation with agentic avatars. You can have video events, webinars, and many others. One thing that was very interesting is that, after you produce a webinar, and a lot of people that I speak to say, like, we really don't know the ROI of a webinar because we produce it, not many people attend it, and we don't know what to do next. So I think software companies like Kaltura actually let you create content post webinars too. And then recently they bought Path Factory, so I'm expecting that you will know who attended, what stage of the journey they are in. So Kaltura.com is what it is. If you have any suggestions, both for speakers on Talking Headless Show or for companies, please feel free to connect on LinkedIn and send me a thing. With that, I'm going to bring up our next guest. Before I bring him up to the stage, I have to thank him a lot because the first event I attended as an analyst several years ago, one of the first people I met was Shawn, and he's like kind of a big deal, which you'll really see when I bring him up. But his journey has been, but he was very nice to me and introduced to me to a lot of other people, and also gave me a little bit of the lay of the land about analysts. He's a CEO of Bark USA and has over 28 years of experience, very internationally recognized analyst, and he's exchanged a few stories as a road warrior with me. And he speaks, he was actually speaking at several of the events that I attended on data, business influence, analytics, AI, ML. And also, he's been in a lot of software companies like TIPCO. I think most people will be familiar with that, Quest, Statistica, and Dell. So he has a very unique perspective. Just like Sneha, I'm sure we're going to enjoy the next conversation with him. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's Shawn Rogers. Hey, Shawn, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining the March Talking Headless show today.
I appreciate you having me. I've been looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, very nice. So let's talk about your journey to becoming an analyst. I mean, you were a CMO in some parts, so many different roles that you've played. So tell everybody about your journey to becoming an analyst.
I came at it from maybe a unique angle. I began as a member of the press. I was one of the co-founders and owners of Data Management Review magazine, a print publication. So it indicates how old I am. And we covered data management and early on business intelligence and the original things around data warehousing and data marts and data in general. So that was back in the 90s. And since then, we were fortunate to sell the magazine. And I went on with my business partner to co-found a thing called the Business Intelligence Network. Again, a marketing and press-oriented company that covered our space of data and analytics and so on. And eventually that journey took me to becoming an analyst and then eventually took me to the vendor side, which was very educational for me. As you mentioned, I've worked for a few of the larger enterprise software companies. So both of those things together opened the door for me to join and help expand Bark, BARC Research. And I am the CEO, as you mentioned, in the US, but we're a large global analyst firm, and we specialize just on data, analytics, AI, and those topics. So yeah, I'm old. I've been around a long time. I'm actually at an event this morning, traveling at a vendors program today. So it's always educational to be out and about.
Thank you. No, I appreciate your joining despite being at an event. I think that's very nice of you to do that. Now, in your journey, what have you seen change in both analysts and analyst relations space?
Wow. Simple question, big answer. I think in the analyst space, we're in a time of disruption for certain. If you look at the large or mega analyst firms, as they're often referred to as the top, the big three, things are interesting there right now. And things are changing. There's a lot of content in the market about economic challenges for the big guys in the space. And, you can go off and find all that stuff on the internet, breaking all of that stuff down. I think on the tier that follows, which is ideally where I would position Bark, things are constantly evolving. There's a lot of M&A and consolidation happening. So some of the really small firms have joined larger firms and so on, and that continues. And then the other things that are disrupting or making change, of course, is AI, which we could talk about for the entire segment if you'd like. AI is certainly making things very different for analyst companies, how they put their services together, how they add value for their customers, and frankly, how they defend against really cool, innovative tech like AI. So it is probably one of the most volatile times that I've seen, having been in this industry for a real long time. But I think it's very exciting. And, frankly, at Bark, we talk about it more as an opportunity than a challenge.
Yep, that's true. And since Bark is a global company, I asked Neha this question and got a fantastic answer. I'm expecting the same from you. So putting you on the spot now, Shawn, is what are some nuances you see, like culturally or otherwise, between your analyst relations across different geographies?
Well, it's markets are different. So being global, you have to be somewhat agile to accept the differences in the market. So doing business as an analyst in the United States, our offerings are common with the rest of the company, but there are some unique things. We see face-to-face is becoming really more important again, and I like that a lot. I miss that during the time when we didn't get face-to-face with our business friends, and that's happening a lot more. So here in the United States, last year we launched our Bark Data and Analytics Retreat in Colorado. It was very well attended, yeah, and successful, and we're doing it again here this year at the end of May. We do a similar and have been doing a similar event in Germany for our EMEA customers, and that event is 15 years old. So Bark itself is 25 years old. So we've been around for a while. So weathering these changes is important. But I think face-to-face is certainly something that is different between the regions. I think analyst footprint, as much as you see analysts like me and you at events and at programs, we travel a lot more in the US and attend a lot more of them in person, where my peers in EMEA don't do as much of that. So yeah, there's subtle differences. Of course, there's language differences. My company is headquartered here in the US, but as well in Würzburg, Germany. So we do a lot of German-based content. And have webinars and papers and events and all of those things in regional languages, which is quite important if you're a global analyst firm.
That's true. No, excellent information. What are some things that companies should do to build a fruitful relationship with an analyst?
The first thing I always kind of think of is get your executives on board. I think all too often the executive suite doesn't understand specifically how to work with analyst firms, and every analyst firm is slightly different. My firm is research driven, so in order to do business with us, you're going to get a lot of numbers and data from us that's based on our research, as well as our point of view on topics that is experiential, right? I've been in this business for 25 years, and so I have that experience and I have certain knowledge that I can impart. I think it's super valuable to couple it with research data so that it's not just my opinion or point of view, but that we're looking at hard numbers and some facts when we do it. But when you ask about how best to work with analyst firms, I think it's really important that the executive level management it participates, doesn't see it as a job or a nuisance. They see it as a valuable interaction, but that they also are willing to put in the effort to understand the differences from one analyst interaction to another. So some analysts in the space I would label as highly strategic analysts, and I think I fall into that bucket. I just was sitting next to one of my analyst friends from a different firm, and he is incredibly technical. And so you want both from the analyst firms, but you want to engage with the firm with the right content at the right time. Sometimes executive leaders and end user companies don't really want to hear the really, really deep, go down the rabbit hole tech. They want to hear more about the why should we do this and why is this important and how do I speak to my board about it? And that's where the strategy side comes in. So I think the best way to work with firms, especially from an executive level, is to invest in your AR program, make it consistent, and make sure that you give it the funds and the resources to interact with all the right analysts in your community. So I think that's highly important. So.
No, this is good information. You also answered one question that's been on top of my mind, because when I started as an analyst, I was covering a few areas, but I'm getting a lot more calls on strategy. So I can see where that's coming from, and mostly from leaders. The technology is moving so fast that they don't want acronyms. They don't want to understand deep down, like, because they have people who can actually do that. So that answered that question about why I'm getting these calls. Like I was telling Sneha earlier, you need somebody to translate geek to English.
Exactly. And that's not necessarily an easy skill all the time. AI has been really interesting. You and I have been around a long time. If you go back a handful of years and remember the disruption from Hadoop and big data, the board, the board of your company, they didn't ask a lot of questions about big data or Hadoop. They weren't super interested in it. AI right now is a top-down initiative. The board is demanding, are we cutting back on our developers? Are we using Gen AI to produce marketing content? Have we put a call, customer agent in place to help our customers? What are we doing with these new technologies? And so the strategic conversation is becoming more important, especially around topics like AI, because, over the last 2 years, everybody went and put their AI bot on their homepage. Now they're trying to do something real, and they need to understand the strategy.
That's true. So you've worked with a lot of AR firms. What are some examples of good AR practices that you've encountered?
You see different styles from every firm in the space, my competitors, but also my peers and my friends. And some of us are somewhat research led, some of us are point of view led, some of us are bigger and some of us are smaller. There's one-man shops, which can deliver incredible value from the point of view of that single analyst. We have 23 full-time analysts that only cover data analytics and AI. So we cut up those markets very finely and can apply a really good level of expertise. You find some of the big firms are very broad in their approach, which can be somewhat valuable sometimes to get those adjacent technologies into the conversation. But I like to think that being highly focused is an advantage for us. I think that having a global footprint isn't necessarily the case with many of the firms in the market. Many of them are regional in their focus, and that can be good, and it can also be a deterrent sometimes. So I think the best practices is when a company approaches a firm, you want to understand what kind of analyst firm is it. So there's some analyst firms out there that have sort of a media slant to them. There's some that have kind of a marketing and marketeering slant to them. Some of them that are just absolutely like, all we do is this type of work. And if you want us to, help you with your marketing program, we'll have to send you to one of our marketing partners. And so I think it's important from a best practice standpoint to understand the services that you're looking for before you approach a firm, to find out if in fact they provide what you need and have the expertise in the market. It's a fairly common issue, and that's why executive level investment in a good AAR program is important. Many of the AAR people I work with and you work with as well, we've had long-term relationships with many of these people. Some of them I've known for 20 years. And so it's a very easy on-ramp to work with their firm, whether they're a vendor and also if they're in the end user side, because I think the end user perspective sometimes gets lost with smaller firms, and because they don't get to speak to end users as much. I'm fortunate. We do 13 events around the globe every year, and we have thousands of end users that come to our programs, and we have many that subscribe to us for advisory services. So it's nice to get to talk to the end user. And if end user perspective through your analyst firm is important, that needs to be a best practice for you.
That's good. And one thing that you brought up, which I really like about this community, both analyst relations and analysts, I think it's a very welcoming community. I mean, despite working for competitors, people exchange ideas. Like I was talking about an agenda-less meeting, right? I know everybody's busy, but still people taking out time to just talk to somebody whom they pursue as a competitor, I think is good. I mean, I want to mention, like, Shawn, when you and I met, you actually helped me plan an entire road trip with me and with my son across the US.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was fabulous. You had a good time.
We had a good time.
I remember. That was you and your son, yes?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I've heard similar stories from others. So I think what I'm taking from your advice is, like, don't be afraid to reach out to the competition if you really want to have it's just a relationship and a friendship, right?
I think that our community is very hospitable and very friendly. And many of us we compete, I guess. We're competitors in the space. But it's some of the analysts that I compete against, I suppose, I have held in great esteem for a very long time. Many of them came before me. I recently started finding myself going, I'm one of the old analysts now. I've been doing this for decades. And I was sitting next at the event I'm at this morning, and I was sitting next to this highly technical analyst from a different firm who's been in the space for about 3 years. And it's fun to watch our community evolve. Because the fresh perspective is very interesting. And I also find that I learn things from all my competitors, because if you put a bunch of us in the same room, we like to talk about what we know and what we're seeing and what we think is the hot trend. And I've been involved in some really wonderful debates and arguments at dinners where all my friends and competitors are in at the same table.
Very nice. One quick, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. When you are in a briefing and you don't like something you hear, will you wait and talk to the analyst relations person after, or do you like to give it right away? I also want to preface it because not every person who's giving the briefing is open always to receiving feedback.
I think I think you have to have the ability to shift gears depending on what kind of briefing it is. You and I attend what I call cattle call briefings, where there might be 50, 60 global analysts in the room. I tend to save my critical commentary for private communications afterwards. If my company has been invited to a specific one-on-one briefing, then the playing field's a little different. And we believe that we can deliver value by being frank and honest, but certainly not condescending or rude. There are analysts in every industry, not just the data industry, but that pride themselves on provocative questions. And I wouldn't say that we're like that, but we are very candid. We do give honest, unvarnished feedback. And again, as you flip or jump the fence, it depends on the AR person that's in the room with us, because I have been told by some of the AR people I've worked with a long time that, hey, the CEO is going to be in the room. He wants unvarnished feedback. And if he steps across the line or says something silly, we really want you to call him on it or call her on it. And those are interesting briefing calls. They really are, when you raise your hand and go, I would like to call BS on what you just said. I don't believe that that's the trend, or I don't think that you're on the right path. And I think the place where most analysts are the most brutal is in their private briefing notes, which never see the sun and never are shared with anybody. And I look back on some of my ongoing notes from briefings, and yeah, we have our snarky moments here and there when we're doing stuff. But yeah, I think if you're a good analyst, you know when to be blunt, you know when to be unvarnished, you know when to call BS, but you also have to understand your surroundings and what kind of briefing you're involved in. I think the value in analysts to AR and to end user companies and vendor companies alike is getting that third party, unbiased and unvarnished perspective. I mentioned that I'm traveling today and I'm at a vendor event. You and I see each other quite often at these things. I go to 25 of those a year, and then I interact with end users on a regular daily basis. The combination of that insight is almost impossible to reproduce, because users can't go to every software conference, and vendors tend to live in a bubble a little bit. They have their conference, they do their competitive analysis, but they don't get to do the briefings and get to do the one-on-ones. This afternoon at the company I'm with today, I'll sit down with the senior vice president of product strategy. That's a really cool conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to learn a few things during that conversation that will help influence my thinking on broader topics. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Now, for the rest of the 9 minutes, I'm going to bring back Sneha and introduce you both and ask some tough questions.
All right.
Hey, Sneha, welcome back. How are you doing?
Good. Very interesting points you made, Shawn. Maybe I'll set a one-to-one meeting with you as well regarding those.
Oh, good to see you, by the way. It was fun communicating in the email thread prepping for this. So
Yeah.
nice to see you.
And Shawn, very interesting point you made. Sorry, Shashi, don't want to take away your limelight, but you said you are at a vendor event and you'll be talking to, one of the vendors, SVP or VP, right?
Yeah.
Product strategy, and that's where Shashi, to your point, AI won't be there at that time, right? It's gonna be just Shawn. So there is where the difference lies as well, right? Because he's talking to enterprise users, he's talking to vendors, and he's talking to folks like us, AR, as well as folks like you who are the peers in the analyst landscape. So that's what makes it a different ball game altogether.
I'm glad you touched on AI, because I believe it exactly how you stated it. You're 100% on target. You can't replace. You can replace some of the things analysts do with Gen AI and AI, which I'm a fan of. It's fine. It's good. But there are certain aspects of what we do that you can't reproduce unless you're physically at programs, physically in the room. And I think that our capability to synthesize all of that information isn't easily done with AI yet today. But I think you'll agree that most analyst firms are putting AI in the front as a way to better serve their customers through that knowledge transfer and things. I just tested a vector graph visualization for data scientists this morning. Wow. That one of the analysts that works for me produced, and he was excited enough to share it with me while I was here today. And he goes, "You just got to look at this really quick." And it was super cool stuff. And these are the things that will add value to our relationships with our customers in the future.
That's true. So a question for both of you is, I'm seeing more and more that analyst relations, the sphere of responsibility is actually expanding. A lot of them are taking on community. Many of them are taking on competitive intelligence. What are you both seeing? Maybe we start with you, Shawn, and then Sneha.
I think it depends on the size of the company. It tends to dictate how diverse AR is. It also dictates what the investment in AR is. So some of the smaller firms that don't have the resources for a dedicated AR individual are often asking these AR-centric people to be communication managers, PR people. They have multiple hats. And I do think that that's something you see quite often. I also think, and Sneha, I think you see this as well, a lot of third-party analyst companies out there helping smaller firms with their AR tactical things and with their strategies. The bigger firms, the really large firms, the hyperscalers, it's hard to figure out which AR person to talk to. They have so many of them. And I just had that experience with one of them last week. I had to send a note to a friend and go, what part of the company is this person doing and what part do they cover? So it's both. I'm not sure I see a timely trend. I think it's more about size and resources. Sneha, what do you think?
Yeah, Sean, completely agree. And I will put it, it really depends on the maturity of the organization when it comes to the AR program, right? So somebody who's just taking baby steps, starting to do briefings, you cannot expect them to be doing competitive intelligence, right? But of course, some of them are leveraging different tools that we have been talking about as well, but it really depends on the organization and what they want to achieve out of AR. But to your point, Shashi, I think with AR, bigger organizations, I have a couple of examples I've seen in India and APAC as well, where they started with AR, have built a good amount of noise in the market, but now are also leveraging because AR has access to, especially if you have advisory subscriptions and discussions, right? You are privy to quite a few things that your competition might also be doing. So competitive intelligence, really makes a difference. But again, to Sean's point, and what I was agreeing to is, it really depends on the maturity of the AR program.
Yeah, that's good. I really don't know which of these scenes work the best, but just been experimenting. So thank you for bearing with me. One of the things that you pointed out, Sneha, is that when you have an advisory relationship, you actually get a good view of the landscape, right? Like somebody who thinks their product is first in the market, I mean, can actually ask, like, is this really true, or what are you seeing in the market, right? Another question that is more towards advice for people entering either as an analyst or analyst relations. Very recently, like, this was a question that was asked, like, hey, how can you encourage more people to come into this community? So either of you can start.
I think Sean, you first.
Okay. From the analyst, you asked me, my career path a little bit at the top. I think you have to have a mix and a broad view of the landscape to be an analyst. I think there are, as I mentioned, there's strategic and technical, and then there's people that are very hybrid. I think you can be a great analyst if you have a data science background, especially at a firm like mine, where we have a whole research group of data scientists. I don't think that there's a cookie cutter to be an analyst. I think you have to have intense curiosity. I think that's a big part of it right now, and it always has been, that you want to dive deep and deeply understand what's happening in your markets. And I want, a friend of mine asked me, what do you like about your job once? And I said, oh, I get paid to know everything. And they went, what does that mean? And I went, well, I get all these briefings and I get all these great interactions. And of course, I don't know everything, but you really have this inside knowledge track that's incredibly valuable and an awful lot of fun. The other side of the coin being to be an AR person, I think having the ability to network in your community is extraordinarily important. being and having attention to detail. I think we can all agree that we go to some briefings and we see funny things, just like simple things like last year's copyright on slides, or going over the time that we all agreed for the meeting, all of these things. I think if you have an attention to detail, analysts really appreciate that. And you want to avoid, you touched on this a little bit a moment ago, you want to avoid slides that say to the analysts, we were the first, we're the only, we don't have competition. Those are triggers. Yeah, she's laughing because we know those are triggering terms for an analyst. And so speak to the analysts in an authentic voice. Don't try to, drive us crazy with buzzwords and marketing fibs. I'm a huge fan of vendors who put a note on the upper right corner of every slide: beta, invitation beta, GA in June. Tell us what's really happening. Don't make us try to peel the onion to get to the facts. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. You, Sneha?
Yeah, I was just noting down a few things, but I would answer for the AR folks, right? I think Shawn has done a fantastic job of answering how to be an analyst. And Shawn, I remembered, one of my leaders in IDC used to say the same thing. It's the best job in the world because you get paid to learn new things. So completely agree with you there. I think on a lighter note and on a serious note as well, I would say how to attract more folks to AR world is first, if people consider analyst relations as a more strategic play rather than defining very strict KPIs, and really going very tactical and transactional at this level, that is what keeps most of the people away and even not being successful at their job. Second thing is, if they had more budgets, I think more folks will be attracted to this role. And then on a lighter and a serious note, both, if the ROI impact, that conundrum, right? Like we have been trying to solve that, and we have done it for some of our customers as well. If that conundrum is solved, right, that puzzle, that maze is solved, I think a lot of folks will be joining AR. But of course, as you said, Shashi, earlier, that we might be only 500 people in this world who are focused on AR, right? I think that is what has kept it, because it has been very regional, because in the US and Europe it's done very differently than the rest of the world. And second is the ROI impact, right? How you really prove it to your executive sponsorship, the leadership internally is what, even Shawn mentioned, right? That's something you need to have an executive sponsor within the organization to be really supporting you and driving the value of AR, right? If the folks don't show up in demos, you can't do anything. If the folks, the CEO or this, CSO, CGO doesn't show up again to really do a business update briefing, again, it won't work that much, right? So really has to be a part of one collaborative team, and we have seen some great examples of doing that, but others are taking some baby steps, but they would be on that journey as well to, where they take their AR program to more maturity.
Yeah, I think we are almost at time, and I know Shawn has to get back to the conference, and Sneha has to get back to whatever is next for her. But maybe can we take 1 minute to answer? Ryan has been a very loyal follower of this show, and I met him in real life at a conference just like you probably last week. So he was talking about reports, articles, your thoughts on opportunities for analyst relations to help organizations grow their AI powered search authority and presence. You can quickly answer that, Sneha, and after that, Shawn.
I think it's a good way to see it. And again, if I understand it correctly, a lot of the Marketing folks are already looking at it, the ones who have been winning some of those report mentions. But again, I would say I would bring it back to the same point, Ryan. It really depends on the maturity of the organization, the how strategic or transactional or tactical it is, and how much bandwidth you really have in the team as well, right? Shawn was mentioning earlier that in some of the organization, the marketing person will be doing PR as well, and the AR as well, and God knows other different things. So it is a valid point. It is a great strategy for organizations to do that. But there are limited examples in the market that I operate in right now. But I know my partners have been seeing some great results when they're doing it in the US and Europe.
Shawn?
Ryan, I thought it was a great question. The idea of search engines versus outputs from LLMs is becoming a really interesting playing field. There's companies that do third-party auditing of the influence that analyst firms are now having in those models. And I am, and Ryan, if you're listening, I'm at srogers@barc.com. And I have 2 slides I'd love to send you later today or tomorrow to show you a little bit of how analyst firms are focusing on that topic. Because while it used to be super interesting to be on the homepage of a Google search, now it's super interesting to be in the AI answer. And things like articles and thought leadership content, research, and so on, that is really driving quality responses with AI. And I think it's the future. And I'm very fortunate. I have a head of marketing that saw it early at BARC. And we do quite well, which is why I'm happy to share the slides with you. You can imagine, haha. But the bottom line is the world is changing, and it is about being able to measure the influence of the firms you're working with and how they influence the market, but also how they influence where the market goes. And, I think we can all agree that, we're not searching 1,000 pages anymore to find our answer. We're getting the answer from AI. And that's important for you and for me from a strategy standpoint for our content.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just to add now, and maybe just to ask Shawn, right? I think there is a lot of fear as well in terms of how it can be manipulated, right? And at a level that we have not seen, at an unprecedented level. So I think I would want to see those slides as well as to how you have done that exceptionally well. And that's a question a lot of our prospects and vendors, customers have been asking as well, right?
Cool.
Because AI in the picture, everything good can multiply, but so can everything bad, or no, not in your favor as well.
I have your email. I'll send it to you when I hear from Ryan.
Great.
That's cool. No, thank you both for, this was a very interesting show. On the aspect of AI-powered search, I just wanted to add, it's a favorite topic of mine. I've also written some research and take a lot of calls on that. So anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about what I am recommending, feel free to reach out to. Of course, feel free to reach out to Sneha and Shawn on LinkedIn. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Shawn and Sneha, for making this a very interesting episode. You can find all these episodes on Players Production Network, either on LinkedIn or on YouTube or wherever you get your videos. With that, thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time on April 29th for another show. It's the last Wednesday of every month, as long as schedules match. Thank you. Bye.
Shashi.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.